On March 8th, and we'll start with our Old Testament reading in Numbers. So we see the Israelites as they set out from Sinai. After spending 11 months there, they're at last ready to head to the wilderness of Paran. And this wilderness area that they're headed to and through is one of the largest, if not the largest and most barren area traveled by them on their journey to the Promised Land. So this includes the southern Negev and the Arabah, and here Moses invites his son-in-law in one particular episode in this reading. He invites his brother-in-law Hobab to accompany him on their journey to Canaan. You might remember that Moses' father-in-law, Reuel, also known as Jethro, had given Moses good leadership advice back in Exodus 18. And now Moses asks Hobab to serve as the eyes for the Israelites. In other words, Hobab could show the Israelites where to find water and also give them other practical advice for survival in the wilderness. You see, Hobab was a Midianite, as was Jethro. The Midianites were a group of tribes living in the desert area surrounding Canaan. So Hobab would have had that vital information that Moses needed on traversing the wilderness. Now, Hobab had his descendants, which were known as the Kenites. So if you see that in the Bible, that's where the Kenites come from. Hobab's response in our reading, interestingly enough, is not recorded, but as we look at Judges chapter 1 verse 16, we see that yes, indeed, Hobab did agree to accompany Moses. So as they made their way, when the ark would set out each morning, Moses called out and said, "Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and that those who hate you flee before you." Then at evening, Moses would pray with poetic hyperbole, "Return, O Lord, to the 10,000 thousands of Israel." Here we might be reminded of our own morning and evening prayers. Certainly, I highly recommend Martin Luther's morning and evening prayers as a good way to start and end the day. Certainly, you can find that in the hymnal or the catechism or even online. Now, the faith of Moses here, as it's revealed in these morning and evening prayers, stands boldly in contrast to what happens next in the book of Numbers as the people begin to complain about God and accuse God of evil. Here we're reminded of the, quote, sweet injuries that Jesus caused, which were not really injuries at all. His miracles of healing and driving out demons during his earthly ministry that caused such an uproar and created so much hate amongst those who tried to take Jesus' life, as we can see in the hymn which we're looking at throughout our Lenten services as kind of a little devotional within the service as we look at "My Song is Love Unknown." Well, back to our text later, we see that the spies that the Israelites sent out to assess the situation in Canaan come back and say that Israel would be soundly defeated if they went up against the inhabitants of the land. And what a difference from Moses's morning and evening prayers that he had. And already at the start of chapter 11, we come across a series of episodes where every single group among the Israelites rebel against God's promises and plans for them. And on each occasion, the sin is shown and then the divine judgment for that sin. As a result of unbelief and disobedience, all the adult males of Israel, except Joshua and Caleb, are going to die in the wilderness and never set foot in the promised land. This even includes Aaron and Moses. But for now, both Moses and the people are treated gently at first. So the fire that breaks out at Taberah is only on the edge of the camp, you'll notice. And furthermore, Moses is not rebuked for his doubts that he expresses. It was their repeated acts of unbelief that led to their exclusion from the promised land. Well, so as not to end on that note, let's consider the gospel. In Mark, our New Testament reading, in chapter 14, a woman with an alabaster flask of pure nard anoints Jesus. Now, alabaster is pretty costly stuff too, and the type of flask that the woman had a narrow neck that would be broken. That's how you would open the flask. So it was a one-use flask, and the entire contents had to be used all at once. And what they contained was pure or genuine nard, as it's called. And this nard is the product of the plant known as Valeria gatamansi, and that is from far eastern India. If it sounds very expensive, it is. It's an expensive perfume, and in fact, it was worth 5 times the value of the money that Judas received for betraying Jesus. Well, why did this woman anoint Jesus? In short, she understood that Jesus would soon die as a criminal, which meant that after his death, there would not be an opportunity to anoint him before he was buried. So she had to anoint him now before his death. Remarkably, she believed Jesus' passion predictions, his predictions of his suffering and death. But there's even more than that. These so-called passion predictions of Jesus all look forward to Jesus' resurrection that would take place after his death. So this faithful woman believes that after 3 days, as he said, Jesus would rise from the dead. There would be the resurrection of Jesus. And she knew that come Sunday morning, when the women went to anoint Jesus' body after the fact, they would not find Jesus' body there to anoint. So that would not work either. This was the time to anoint Jesus. How remarkable. So the anointing of Jesus' body by the woman in this reading is perhaps the greatest expression of belief in Jesus by anybody in any of the gospel accounts. Truly, it is amazing. Well, that is a good place to leave you for today. May God be